He's a tired guardian of a city that calls fresh blacktop progress. Tonight, the ground beneath that promise shifted. Quiet, absolute, impossible to ignore. This is about a truth that won't stay silent. About money, structures, and the small betrayals that become monstrous. Light that looks like progress, hiding a patient, organized darkness. Choices will arrive wrapped in courtesy. Doors will close politely while the real work goes on beneath. Brackenbay Ace Files, Asphalt Veins. Stay with us until the veneer breaks. Part 1. A crack in the pavement. The air in the pre-dawn chill was sharp with the chemical bite of creation. It was the smell of fresh asphalt, a scent that was supposed to mean progress for Brackenbay, a city that hadn't seen much of it lately. Tonight, it smelled like a tombstone. Detective Jack Palmer stood on a newly paved, unopened section of the Expressway, the artificial glare of portable floodlights chasing away the shadows. He looked down at the reason the entire project had ground to a halt. A single, pale hand, fingers slightly curled, reached up from the smooth black tarmac. It looked like a desperate swimmer breaking the surface of a dark, still lake, a final, silent plea. His partner, Sal Costello, a rumpled man whose face was a testament to too many years and too many crime scenes, came to stand beside him. Sal took a swig from a dented silver flask, the metallic scrape loud in the quiet. "Hell of a place to plant someone," Sal muttered, his voice a gravelly rasp. "Talk about hiding in plain sight." "It's not hiding," Palmer said, his gaze sweeping the scene. "It's a billboard." The uniformed captain, a man named Davies, whose ambition was always at war with his patients, hurried over. His phone was already buzzing, a frantic insect in his palm. "The mayor's office is having a fit," Davies said, the words aimed directly at Palmer. "They want this contained, quietly." Palmer met his captain's gaze. He knew what that meant. It was the same dance they'd done 5 years ago, when Palmer had pushed an investigation into city contract fraud so far up the ladder that the ladder had been kicked out from under him. The case had vanished into a committee, and his career had flatlined. A man cemented into a municipal highway isn't going to stay quiet, Captain. Just keep it clean, Palmer. By the book. The leash was already being tightened. The forensics team arrived, and the quiet was shattered by the roar of machinery. They began the grim work of excavation. A reverse burial performed with jackhammers and diamond-bladed saws. The noise was brutal, an assault on the cold air. Palmer watched every detail, his eyes tracking the methodical destruction. The quality of the paving job was flawless, the lines perfect. This was professional work, from start to finish. Hours later, the body was finally free, a grotesque parody of a fossil pulled from black stone. It was a male, stripped of all identification, his features obscured by the trauma of his final moments. A messy, anonymous murder designed to erase a man from the world. The medical examiner's office was a world away, a place of cold steel, white light, and the sterile smell of disinfectant. Dr. Evans, the M.E., was a woman as methodical and precise as her instruments. She confirmed what Palmer already suspected. "He was alive when he went in," she said, her voice devoid of emotion as she looked up from the body. Cause of death was a combination of massive blunt force trauma and extreme thermal burns, the paving machine's hopper. Palmer nodded slowly, the image forming in his mind. A terrible way to die. "There aren't many good ones in my line of work," she replied dryly. She began her detailed examination of the victim's mouth. "Check for anything that could be used as an identifier," Palmer said, his mind working the angles of the case. "This man was part of the project. Let's assume he was important, an asset. People like that, involved in billion-dollar jobs, sometimes have protocols. Insurance, security. Check for anything. Surgical pins, RFID chips. Let's start with the dental work. It's the hardest part of the body." Dr. Evans raised an eyebrow, intrigued by the logic. She switched her light to a fine, focused beam and leaned in closer with her instruments. She worked for several minutes in silence. "Well, I'll be damned, Jack," she said finally, her voice holding a note of genuine surprise. She pointed with a fine steel probe to a rear molar. High-end porcelain crown, custom work. She adjusted a small articulated camera, and a magnified image appeared on the monitor beside the table. "Look there." Palmer leaned in. Embedded in the side of the pristine white crown, so small it was almost invisible, was a microscopic laser etching, a clean, precise string of alphanumeric characters. Back at the precinct, the coffee was stale, and the fluorescent lights hummed a weary tune. Costello was on the phone, working the lead. The etching, they'd learned, was a forensic identifier, a system used by a small, high-tech dental group out of Boston for high-profile or at-risk clients. Costello had a contact number for the company's database manager. "Yeah, I've got it right here," Costello said into the speakerphone, reading the serial number off a notepad. "That's right, just checking on patient." They waited, the silence in the squad room thick with anticipation. Finally, the voice came back, clear and professional. "Okay, I have a match. The crown was fabricated for a client in Brackenbay." "What's the name?" Palmer asked. "Williams," the voice said. "Arthur Williams." Palmer hung up the phone and turned to his computer, his fingers flying across the keyboard. He typed the name into the city's employment database. The result flashed on his screen, stark and undeniable. Arthur Williams. He wasn't just a citizen. He was a senior project engineer for the Brackenbay Municipal Development Board. His current assignment, lead quality control overseer for the Brackenbay Expressway construction project. Palmer leaned back in his chair, the worn springs groaning. Costello let out a low whistle. The victim wasn't just buried in the project. He was the project. This wasn't a random mugging or a gang hit. It was an execution, a message written in asphalt and bone for anyone with the stomach to read it. The circle of suspects, which had started as the entire population of Brackenbay, had just shrunk to a very small, very powerful group of insiders.
Part 2.
A city of blueprints. Arthur Williams' apartment was a testament to a life lived by the ruler and the level. It was a minimalist space in a new downtown high-rise, all sharp lines and muted colors. A place that felt more like an architect's rendering than a home. Palmer ran a gloved finger along a bookshelf. The books on structural engineering were aligned with obsessive precision. A man who believed in order. "This guy's got no bad habits," Sal Costello observed from the kitchen, holding up a bottle of mineral water. "The fridge is full of this stuff and kale. Place is cleaner than my ex-wife's conscience." Palmer moved into the small, Spartan office. The desk was clear, save for a computer, a lamp, and a single framed photograph of Williams with a woman who shared his intelligent eyes. Palmer found the snapped SIM cards in the wastebasket first. Then he moved to the bedroom closet. A high-end leather suitcase sat on the floor, half-packed. Inside, the contents told a story of profound indecision. One expensive suit, carefully folded, lying next to rugged, waterproof hiking boots and heavy wool socks. It was the luggage of a man who didn't know if his next destination was a boardroom in Zurich or a cabin in the woods. A man preparing for every possible future because he knew his own was no longer guaranteed. While the initial forensic sweep finished up, Costello found a next-of-kin from a file in Williams' desk, a sister, Sarah, living in Vermont. Back at the precinct, while the tech unit began their work, Palmer set up a video call. Sarah Williams appeared on his monitor, a woman in her late 40s, her face etched with a confusion that was quickly curdling into fear. She sat in a room filled with the warm clutter of a life well lived, a stark contrast to her brother's sterile apartment. "Detective, I don't understand," she began, her voice trembling. "My brother's assistant said there was an emergency. Is Arthur okay?" Palmer chose his words carefully. "Ma'am, we're trying to locate your brother. I'm trying to get a sense of his state of mind recently. Did he seem worried, under pressure?" Sarah nodded, twisting a tissue in her hands. "He was always quiet, dedicated. He believed in things, you know, in blueprints, in the idea that if you built something right, it would last forever. That was his religion." She paused, her gaze drifting past the camera. "The last few months, he was different, frayed. He called me last week, late at night. He sounded haunted. He was talking about the project, the Expressway. He mentioned pressure, immense pressure, to sign off on material reports he knew were wrong. He called the whole thing a house of cards built on a sinkhole." "Did he say what he was gonna do?" Palmer pressed gently. "He said he was gonna take a long vacation," she said, her voice breaking. "A very long one. I thought he meant he was burning out. I told him he deserved it. I didn't realize he was telling me he was scared. I didn't know." "You couldn't have," Palmer said softly. He ended the call, the image of the woman's grief, a fresh wound in the case. This wasn't just a body in the asphalt anymore. It was Arthur Williams, the quiet idealist, the man of blueprints, murdered for believing in them. Before he could fully process it, his desk phone rang. It was Captain Davies. "City Hall," he said, his voice tight. "The mayor wants to see you now." The mayor's office occupied the top floor, a sprawling space of glass and steel with a view that flattened Brackenbay into an elegant, abstract map. Mayor Thompson was as polished as the mahogany of his desk, a man whose charisma was a tangible force field. He shook Palmer's hand firmly, his other hand clasping Palmer's shoulder in a gesture of feigned intimacy. Palmer met the mayor's practiced gaze and saw the politician, not the man. He saw the subtle calculation behind the eyes, the way his concern was directed not at the victim, but at the potential disruption to his legacy project. The mayor's smile tightened just a fraction. His hand was still on Palmer's shoulder, the grip surprisingly firm. "Jack," he said, his voice dropping to a confidential whisper, "I know your record. You're a bulldog, a man of integrity. That's why you're on this. But this expressway, it's the city's lifeline. It's jobs, commerce, our future. Find who did this, but do not let your investigation become a witch hunt that paralyzes the most important project in this city's history." It was an order wrapped in a compliment, a clear warning to stay in his lane, delivered with a smile that could charm a snake. Leaving City Hall, Palmer felt the invisible walls of the case closing in. He met Sal back at their car. "The mayor wants a monster," Palmer said. "I get the feeling he doesn't care if it's the right one. He just wants a head on a platter before the evening news," Sal grunted. "Speaking of which, forensics found something in William's desk calendar from last month. A recurring meeting with a city inspector, name of Alenko. He's the guy who signed off on the preliminary concrete specs." They found Frank Alenko at his modest suburban home, a small brick house with a neatly trimmed lawn that spoke of a man who followed rules. Alenko was a jittery, bird-like man with beads of sweat on his forehead despite the cool afternoon air. "I barely knew Arthur," Alenko stammered, refusing to meet their eyes. "We met a few times, standard procedure." "Standard procedure to meet on a Sunday, Frank?" asked Sal, looking at his notes. "3 Sundays in a row?" "He was thorough," Alenko said, his gaze darting around his own living room as if looking for an escape route. "He had questions. I answered them. That's all." Palmer leaned forward slightly. "Williams was worried about the materials, Frank, the concrete mix. He thought it was substandard, and you're the man who signed off on it." Alenko flinched as if struck. "The tests were clean," he insisted, his voice cracking. "Everything was up to code. It's all in the reports." "We'll be looking at those reports very closely," Palmer said. "And you." As they left, Sal shook his head. "That guy is scared spitless. He's hiding something." The next morning, Palmer ran Alenko's financials. What he found was both predictable and damning. 2 weeks ago, Frank Alenko had made a cash deposit of $50,000 into his savings account. The official reason listed on the bank's transaction record? Lottery winnings. "What a lucky guy," Sal said dryly when Palmer told him. "I should play his numbers." They drove back out to Alenko's house. The street was quiet. The house was empty. A "for sale" sign was hammered into the perfect lawn. The neighbors said the Alenkos had packed up and left yesterday, in a hurry. He was gone. Another dead end. But it wasn't a total loss. It was a perfect, clean demonstration of the conspiracy's reach. Connor Taylor didn't just have money. He had fear. And fear was a much more effective tool. It was with that chilling thought that Palmer finally went to confront the king in his castle. He drove out to the sprawling, muddy construction site, to a prefab trailer furnished like a throne room. Connor Taylor, the cement king of Brackenbay, was the physical opposite of the mayor. He was a big man, built like a retired linebacker, with a granite jaw and hands that looked like they could crush stone. He radiated raw, unfiltered power and didn't bother to offer Palmer a seat. "Detective," Taylor grunted, "my foreman tells me you're sniffing around. Make it quick. I've got a schedule to keep. Concrete waits for no man." "I'm investigating the murder of Arthur Williams," Palmer said, his voice even. Taylor scoffed, a deep, rumbling sound. "Right, the city pencil pusher. Came around with his clipboard, checking load-bearing capacities. Barely said 10 words to the man. He bristled at the implication that one of his own sites was a crime scene. "My sites are secure. My men are professionals. Your man didn't die here." He treated Palmer's presence not as part of an investigation, but as an infuriating bureaucratic delay. Back at the precinct that evening, the tech unit delivered the final pieces. The router logs confirmed Williams had been planning an escape, and the hidden partition on his hard drive laid out the whole ugly story. Falsified reports, a shadow budget, and the reason for it all. The last entry was dated the night of his disappearance. It was short and chilling. "They're not just stealing from the city," it read. "They're building something else. Down in the dark. Tunnel System 7. Part 3. The Echoing Dark. The precinct was humming with the low-grade energy of a dozen other cases, but for Palmer, the world had shrunk to the contents of Arthur Williams' hard drive. He had the motive. He had the conspiracy. He had the destination, Tunnel System 7. What he didn't have was proof that would hold up in court. He and Sal sat in a corner booth of a 24-hour diner that smelled of stale coffee and regret. It was after midnight. The place was nearly empty, a refuge for the city's ghosts. "So, let me get this straight," Sal said, stirring his coffee with a plastic stick. "You've got a dead engineer who was about to blow the whistle, a terrified inspector who hit the lottery and vanished, a mayor who wants this buried yesterday, and a construction kingpin who acts like he's above the law because he probably is." "That about sums it up," Palmer said, staring into his own untouched cup. "And now you want to go crawling around in some pre-war sewer because of a dead man's diary?" Sal shook his head slowly, a weary look on his face. "Jack, I've known you a long time. I was there 5 years ago. I saw what happened when you tried to fight City Hall. They didn't just beat you. They broke your career into little pieces and swept them under the rug. This is bigger. Taylor is more dangerous than those councilmen ever were." "Williams knew it," Palmer said, his voice quiet, "and he still tried. He was a man of principle, Sal. And now he's a man in a coroner's freezer," Sal countered, his voice firm but not unkind. "There are some fights you can't win. This city, it's built on guys like Connor Taylor. It's in the foundations. You can't change that. You can only hope to stay out of their way." "So we just let it go? A man is dead?" "We find the guy who pulled the trigger," Sal said. "We build a case we can win. We don't go on a crusade against a ghost in a tunnel." He leaned forward, his expression serious. "Go to Davies with this, see what he says. But I'm telling you, Jack, don't go down that hole alone. Some things you can't come back from." Sal was right, of course.
He was the voice of reason, of survival. But Palmer knew what Davies would say. The next morning, he went through the motions anyway. He laid the file on his captain's desk. "He found the flaw in the machine, Captain," Palmer said. "It's more than enough to get a warrant to investigate Taylor's sites and the tunnels." Captain Davies didn't even open the file. He looked like a man who hadn't slept. "These are just notes, Jack, unverified. You want me to shut down a billion-dollar city project based on the ramblings of a man our primary suspect is painting as unstable? The mayor's office will crucify us. I told you, find the killer, not a conspiracy." The wall had gone up. It was official. Blocked by the very system he was sworn to uphold, Palmer went old school. The Brackenbay Municipal Archives was a place most cops forgot existed. A cavernous, dusty basement that smelled of decaying paper. He spent the better part of the afternoon surrounded by ghosts, his hands dusty as he unrolled brittle, yellowed sewer schematics. He found it late in the day on a blueprint from 1928, a detailed map of the original Tunnel System 7, a storm drain and sewer line marked as decommissioned and sealed in the late 50s. He cross-referenced its path with a modern street map. Most access points were gone, paved over, but one remained. A forgotten overflow vent located in a derelict patch of land behind a defunct cannery, miles from the Expressway and miles from prying eyes. That night, Palmer sat in his car, the engine off, watching the rain begin to trace paths down the windshield. Sal's warning echoed in his mind. But so did the image of Sarah Williams' grieving face. He pulled out his phone and sent the coded text to Sal. "Thinking of going fishing at the old cannery tonight. Feel free to join." It wasn't just an insurance policy anymore. It was an apology. He found the access point behind the skeletal remains of the old cannery. A massive, rust-eaten iron manhole cover, half swallowed by weeds. Using a crowbar from his trunk, he strained against decades of neglect until it finally gave way with a heavy clang. A wave of cold, stagnant air rose from the darkness. He clipped a powerful flashlight to his belt, checked the action on his service weapon, and began his descent into the echoing dark. The first section of the tunnel was a journey into the city's forgotten past. A huge brick-lined cylinder dripping with water. The only sounds were the steady drip and the solitary scrape of his own boots. He walked for what felt like miles. Then the tunnel began to change. The air grew warmer, drier. He rounded a wide, sweeping corner, and his light caught the transformation. The old, crumbling brickwork ended abruptly, met by a wall of smooth, poured concrete. Modern, industrial-grade conduit ran along the walls, feeding newly installed LED lighting strips. The air hummed with the faint vibration of a ventilation system. He drew his weapon now and followed the renovated corridor. It opened into a massive, excavated chamber. Set into the far wall was a monument to secrecy, a massive bank vault-style door of reinforced steel. Palmer lowered his gaze from the vault door, looking at the clean concrete floor, the perfectly routed conduit. His mind raced, recontextualizing every fact of the case. The skimmed money, the substandard steel, the rushed paving schedule. It wasn't greed, not just greed. It was a second, hidden budget. They weren't just stealing from the city. They were using its treasury to build a private kingdom underground, using the Expressway as a multi-billion-dollar smokescreen. As he stood there, he heard it, a soft scrape, the sound of a rubber sole on concrete. He spun, his weapon coming up, his heart hammering against his ribs. Two men stood at the mouth of the chamber, blocking his only exit. They were dressed in black tactical gear, their faces impassive. They held silenced pistols, aimed calmly and steadily at his center mass. They had been waiting for him. The trap had been sprung.
Part 4. Buried Alive. The two men moved with a quiet, professional efficiency that spoke of long practice. Palmer didn't resist. He knew a pointless struggle when he saw one. They relieved him of his weapon and phone, their movements economical and precise. One of them spoke into a small communicator on his wrist. "We have him." In response, the massive vault door swung inward, not with a groan, but with the near-silent hiss of perfectly balanced hydraulics. The air that flowed out was cool and conditioned. Palmer was escorted from the grime of the city's forgotten past into a brightly lit, startlingly modern interior. It wasn't a dusty bunker. It was a state-of-the-art command center. Rows of humming server racks lining one wall, a bank of monitors displaying news feeds and market data on another. In the center of the room, Connor Taylor was waiting for him, seated in a large leather armchair with a glass of amber liquid in his hand. He looked perfectly calm, a king surveying his private subterranean domain. Taylor dismissed his men with a flick of his wrist. They vanished back into the corridor, and the vault door hissed shut, the sound of finality echoing in the enclosed space. "Detective Palmer," Taylor said, his voice smooth, a stark contrast to the blunt instrument he had been in the trailer. "I do admire persistence, a rare quality in this city." He took a slow sip of his whiskey, his eyes twinkling with the pleasure of a game well played. He saw no threat here, only an audience. With arrogant pride, he confirmed everything Palmer had pieced together. He mocked the city's bureaucracy, the mayor's vanity, the entire system as simple tools he had used to get what he wanted. "They wanted an expressway," he said with a laugh, "a symbol of progress. So I gave them one. A shoddy, overpriced symbol that served a much more important purpose." He gestured around the room. "A secure data haven, a crisis command center, a place for men like me to ride out the storms that men like you sometimes create. All paid for by the good, tax-paying citizens of Brackenbay." "And Arthur Williams?" Palmer asked, his voice flat. Taylor waved a hand dismissively. The engineer was too good at his job. A fatal lack of imagination. He saw the numbers didn't add up, and he couldn't let it go. He explained how he had personally lured Williams down to the tunnels to inspect a structural issue he'd invented. Burying him in the project was a message, Taylor said, a cold smile touching his lips. "We pave over our mistakes in this city, detective. It's the foundation of our success." He leaned forward, setting his glass down on a polished steel table. The performance was over. It was time for business. Which brings us to you. You have a choice. Option A, you can be a hero. You'll die here,
A tragic disappearance, your body encased in a fresh concrete wall where no one will ever find it. Or, option B, you can be a pragmatist. He let that hang in the air. You'll be released. A fabricated story will be fed to your superiors about a dead-end lead. And a very secure, very quiet bank account will be opened in your name. Every man has a price, detective, even the ones who pretend they don't. Palmer looked around the humming, silent room. He looked at the solid steel door. Taylor was right. He couldn't fight his way out. He had one weapon left. He looked Taylor dead in the eye, his own face a mask of cold, professional confidence. "You're right," Palmer said, his voice steady. "You can kill me down here and no one would ever find the body. But you've made one mistake. You trust Mayor Thompson." Taylor scoffed, but a flicker of uncertainty touched his eyes. "Before I came down here," Palmer continued, his words deliberate and measured, "I packaged everything from Arthur Williams' hard drive. The real materials reports, your shadow budget, the tunnel schematics, everything that proves the mayor signed off on the falsified documents. I put it all in a dead man's switch."
A what? A simple time of email, Palmer explained, the lie feeling more real with every word he spoke. "It's not addressed to my captain, or the feds, or the press. They can all be managed. It's addressed to one person, Councilman Miller, the man who's been screaming for an independent audit of your Expressway for the past year. The email is set to send tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. The only way to stop it is a passcode I have to enter manually before then. If I don't walk out of here, your entire conspiracy, including the mayor's direct complicity, lands in the lap of the one man who will burn your whole world down just to get the mayor's chair." The bluff hung in the sterile air between them. It wasn't a threat against the fortress. It was a threat against the political alliances that made it possible. Taylor could trust his concrete, but could he trust a politician to hold the line when his own career was on the fire? Just as Taylor opened his mouth, a new sound began. It was faint at first, a low, grinding vibration coming from the ceiling high above them. It grew steadily stronger, a deep thrumming that vibrated through the floor, the sound of heavy-duty drilling. Dust began to trickle from the acoustic panels in the ceiling. The grinding grew louder, more violent, the unmistakable sound of industrial drills chewing through reinforced concrete. Alarms, shrill and piercing, began to blare throughout the facility, their red lights flashing off the steel walls. Taylor scrambled to his feet, his face a mask of disbelief and fury. He stabbed at a control panel on the wall, shouting orders into an intercom. "Lockdown! Full lockdown! Seal the main corridor!" A heavy steel plate began to descend over the vault door, but it was too late. The drilling sound from above was deafening now, concentrated in one spot. With a final, ear-splitting roar, the drill bit punched through the ceiling. A moment later, the hole widened as pneumatic jaws tore a larger opening. Ropes snaked down, and heavily armed tactical officers began to rappel into the room, their weapons sweeping the space. "Police, hands where I can see them!" the team leader shouted, his voice amplified by a helmet comm. Taylor's two security men rushed back into the room from a side door, weapons drawn. but they froze, hopelessly outmanned and outgunned. They dropped their pistols with a clatter. Connor Taylor stood by his desk, his fists clenched, his face purple with rage. For a moment, he looked like he might lunge for a weapon, for some final futile act of defiance. He looked at the tactical team, then at Palmer. In his eyes, Palmer saw the full, crushing weight of his defeat. The architect was trapped inside his own creation. The king was cornered in his tomb. Slowly, with the movements of a man whose bones had turned to lead, Connor Taylor raised his hands into the air. A tactical officer zip-tied his wrists behind his back, the plastic tie making a sharp, final sound that cut through the dying whine of the drill. Palmer walked over and picked up his service weapon from the table where Taylor's man had left it. The metal felt cool and solid in his hand. He looked at Taylor, now just a man in an expensive suit, his power stripped away, his invincibility shattered. "You were right about one thing, Taylor," Palmer said, his voice quiet but clear over the commotion. "We do pave over our mistakes in this city." He gestured up at the gaping hole in the ceiling. "Sometimes we just have to drill through them first."
Thank you for wandering Brackenbay with us. If you'd like more, please subscribe. We have more cases waiting. Find the text compilation of these stories and other works from the authors on Amazon. The links are in the description.